Today we will be discussing the landmark historical case of Brown versus Board of Education and why Topeka was the focal point for this decision to happen. Here we can see the front of the Monroe School that the children of color had to travel further to get to than the white children who lived in the same neighborhoods. One such child was Linda Brown, daughter of Oliver Brown. Linda Brown had to walk through railroad tracks 5 blocks every day just to get to the bus that would take her to the school for children of color. This meant that she had to get up earlier in the morning than her white counterpart students. Oliver Brown did not like this one bit, so he took his daughter to be enrolled at the nearest school to his home. The school was Sumner School and was for white children only. After a discussion with the principal made it very clear that his daughter was not able to be enrolled at this school and that she must continue to attend the Monroe School. With the help of the NAACP, Brown sued the Topeka Board of Education. Unfortunately, this lawsuit was denied, and the Topeka Board of Education upheld segregation under the guise of Plessy v. Ferguson. After losing the lawsuit, the NAACP, under the counsel of Thurgood Marshall, decided to have parents of color try and enroll their children into white schools closest to their homes. Well, after their enrollment was denied, this gave them the power they needed to generate a class action lawsuit and appeal their case to the Supreme Court. As it so happens, this issue was going on elsewhere in the country, and thus Brown versus Board of Education was the lead case, condensing 4 other cases that all had to do with the same thing: segregation in education. Which brings us to our question. What was it about Topeka that was so perfect and so pivotal that Topeka was the hotspot for this sort of change to happen? And to answer that question, I have with me today Park Ranger Dexter Armstrong from the Topeka Brown versus Board of Education. Was Topeka simply the town that provided the perfect example of how separate but equal was inherently unequal?
So we'll come in and say separate but equal is unequal and unfair. That is the correct answer, Their reasoning and justification behind why it's unequal and unfair is usually and only because of resources. Topeka, Kansas provided all of that. Now what's left to complain about? You see how you see, so now that's why the no part of it, because if it was did it perfectly show how separate but equal can be unequal? Yes, because that's what they use. The no part of it is based on, depending on how you think it's unequal or unfair. So now the yes part of it is what it showed is essentially, this is what I show individuals. Greatness as far as education is what they being Thurgood Marshall and the NAACP, his team, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Integration is what they were shooting for. That was what they were aiming for, okay? Kansas was about right here. We'll put it about right here. It had its issues for sure, but in comparison to the rest of the country, it looked pretty good, all right? Now, the rest of the country looked like garbage in comparison, okay? So now on that note, if you were to utilize anything other than Kansas, let's say they would have used South Carolina. So this court case actually consisted of 5 court cases.
Yes.
Court case that came from D.C., Delaware, Virginia, South Carolina, and Kansas, okay? Those are your 5. Let's say they would have used that South Carolina. Let's say 3 things that they complain about: the facilities, funding, and teachers' educations, okay? So using South Carolina, they will say, well, and they being Thurgood Marshall and his team, and the other side it was who's answering, essentially their lawyers, the lawyers that's trying to keep segregation. Thurgood Marshall and his
team. The school board.
Yeah, exactly. They could say, well, their buildings look like shacks. The school board would say, you're absolutely right. Let's give them the same architect that built the white school, let them build a black school, moving up. Well, they don't have any books any money for books, resources, any of that kind of stuff. Well, let's give them the exact same amount of money, okay? Well, their teachers are not even qualified to teach. Let's give them teachers with master's degrees and PhDs. You see what I just got to?
Yeah.
I didn't ask for another Kansas. I said, let's try to hit greatness or at least close to it. So two things that showed there was something between Kansas and greatness that they had to prove to show that that was unequal or unfair, which was the yes part of the conversation of, can you show it? Yes, but you got to prove it. The other thing it shows is if you use anything other than Kansas, all they're going to do is do exactly what I just did, tell you to throw money at it and make it look like Kansas. But if I already have a Kansas and I can prove it here, then the rest of the country has no choice but to change. If I use it in the South, I get another Kansas, and you and I legally can't have this conversation right here, right now, because you're white, I'm black, and segregation was legal and right.
So that's why Topeka.